Hello, and welcome to episode 36 of KnitScents. My name is Jan, and you can find me as Jan Ellen RN on Ravelry, on Instagram. I do go on Snapchat, but I haven't snapped yet. I'm kind of trying to figure it out. And I'm not sure. I still haven't checked if I'm there as Jan Ellen RN or Mom Has Three. So, if you're interested or if you're into Snapchat, hop on over there and who knows, maybe you'll catch my first attempt at snapping. It is Thursday and it is November something, 16th, I think. And let's see, it's been pretty quiet around here. It's rainy, it was cold, now I think it's getting warm again. I don't know, I don't know how to dress. And as you can tell, I'm kind of really bundled up here in my finished object. So as you can tell from my intro, I don't know, I guess something just snapped when I took a look at all of the finished objects that I've had, not just from the past few weeks, but some of them have been lingering here for years. Some were blocked without the ends woven in. Most were in a pile that hadn't been blocked and the ends weren't woven in, and the pile just kept getting bigger. So I made a dedicated effort this week. I cleared off my dining room table. I laid down my blocking mats, which were necessary, the whole table. In fact, I didn't even have enough room, and I have my table closed seats 8 people comfortably. So I didn't even have enough room to block this really fully. And I did not stretch it. I didn't open the lace. I just literally laid it flat. But I did a tremendous amount of blocking. My blocking mats are still out because I'm not even done yet. I do have some things to show you. Some will look familiar because you might have seen them when they were finished and not blocked or not done. Some of them are probably from before I even started podcasting. And I had this dress form, and what it was doing was just basically tossing things on it, and it started to just look like dangling ends of crap. And it was sad because buried underneath that crap was some really nice things that I had worked pretty hard on. So that's what I did predominantly this week. I did get some knitting done. I know last week when I recorded, I think it was Wednesday, and I had just found out that Christy Glass was paying a visit to a local alpaca farm, and I was able to make it there that night, so I will talk about that. Again, I have some whips. I have one new cast-on item and very little stash enhancement and just a list of FOs and some, let's call them really finished FOs to show you. So that's about it. So let's jump in with what's on the needles. I have been really, what got the most love this week, again, the chair noises chair, I am telling you, is going to collapse out from under me. I tell you, this chair, if ever this house went up, you would find me carrying this table, this kitchen table, literally out on my back, and the chairs. Not because it's any great shakes of the table, but it's been in my family for at least 100 years. It's got self-storing leaves. I love this table to death, but it's seen better days. The table actually is fine. It's the chairs that kind of probably could use replacement, but I don't know how to match them, and really the only one has an arm. I don't know why I'm going off on this tangent, but the bottom line is that's why I'm kind of reluctant to get rid of the chairs, because it's just part part of the set, you know? And I don't know, I guess it's meaningful to me. It's probably an eyesore to everybody else, but that's okay. So we're going to just deal with the creaks or whatever until one day I land on the floor, and then we'll move on to another chair. Okay, moving along. I worked a lot, and I think what got the most love this week is my Birds of a Feather shawl, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry, and I am knitting it in Hedgehog fibers in the Zephyr colorway in both the mohair, which I've broken this one off. So it is the Zephyr colorway in both the mohair and the skinny singles. And you can see that it basically has the same colors in it, but how tremendously different each of these fibers took the dye. But I love the way this is coming out. It is so nice and light, and of course I'm in the middle of a row. Okay, who wants to take bets that this is all going to be off the needles before I'm done? Anyway, I did make a lot of progress. Well, I don't want to say a lot, but I made a good amount of progress on it. But you can see where it's starting to really show the difference between these really feathery, light, and fluffy, soft mohair sections. And they're still very light, but now you can really feel the weight to the skinny singles. And they just go together and blend so beautifully that really, unless you're looking from a distance, it just looks more like a change in color in yarn than a change both in color and texture. It's when you really look up close, look actually further away, that you can start to see that it is more sheer here, and you can see through it better. So anyway, the pattern is extremely similar to the Find Your Fade in the construction. You start at this wee little end. You do have a center double decrease. You're doing a lot of garter in the fingering in the singles, garter in the mohair, and then you add in a very simple lace section in the fingering in the skinny singles, which is here, which to me looks just like a traditional feather and fan section. And then you do more garter in the mohair, more garter in the singles, more garter in the mohair. And I'm right now just starting, you can see I started it last night, the section which will be the next lace section in the skinny singles. And once this section is complete, then the increases will stop. Well, let's see if I can, without dropping all these stitches, you can see it's got like a triangular shape to it. But once this section, this lace section that I'm working on now, and the pattern increases 2 stitches every other row. And what will happen at the end of this section, when I go into the the garter section on the skinny singles, is that the increases will cancel out because you drop the yarn overs on the following row. So, and that is the same way that the Find Your Fade was worked, that you increase to a certain point and then you stop increasing by dropping your yarn overs. And it basically stays the same width. Now, I don't know how many sections. I didn't look ahead. I've sort of been putting it in my Knit Companion section by section. So I'm not sure how much more there is to go, but I know it called for 2 skeins of the skinny singles. And this is how much I have left of my first one. Okay, and here's my second. And this is lace weight, and I have a good chunk of this left too. So I don't think I'm anywhere near finished. Again, like I said, I'm not exactly sure how many sections it is, but this is very, very simple knitting. Even the lace, and I don't think I had started the lace section last time because I remember saying there was no chart for it. And I was kind of nervous that, you know, I'm not very good at following, especially intricate lace patterns with the written directions. I lose my place and then I have to go back and start counting, and to me that's a pain. This wasn't. This was just like knit two together X amount of times, yarn over knit one X amount of times, and then knit and then SSK X amount of times. It was extremely memorizable once you got started. You could get across the row without any trouble. So it wasn't something that you really needed a chart for anyway. And there's only that one row. Like I said, that is why I think it's traditional feather and fan, because it's mostly garter and then one row of lace, and then it goes back to garter. So that got the majority of the love this week. Squeaky chair, but it's still standing underneath me. I don't know if I'm being extremely brave or extremely stupid today, and I will leave that up to you as to what you think is going to happen. Here we go, and so it begins. But I actually have an open mug of tea today. Again, I'm off on a tangent. Cole, quiet down. Come on, Cole. I had made a trip to David's Tea last week. I think it was last week. And tried out some different teas from them. Now, I don't drink milk. I don't do dairy. And I really can't drink traditional black tea without milk in it. So there went that. Anyway, I went in there. And I found this color-changing mug, this little fox here. He's actually black until you put hot water in it, and then he turns white, which I thought was really cute. But one of the teas I got, which I am in love with, it's so good, and I'm not really a green tea. This actually isn't green tea, it's oolong. I think the name is what sold me. It's called Happy Kombucha. And I'm thinking, well, a happy kombucha is certainly better than an unhappy or a sad kombucha, so I would give it a try. And it's basically a fruity oolong tea. And I'm really enjoying it. Obviously, I wouldn't put milk in this type of tea. And I'm not really into fruit. It's very hard. I have to find one that has absolutely no apple in it whatsoever, which this didn't. I think it has mango in it. And who knows what else. It just looked like it had a whole lot of stuff in it. But if you like not a green tea, which I did buy some of those too, but if you're looking for a black tea, but not black tea, an oolong tea, which is not as heavily roasted or roasted as long as a black tea is, so it still has some more of that black tea flavor, but not as strong as a traditional black tea, but also has some fruit in it. I would highly recommend this. Again, it's David's Tea, and it's Happy Kombucha. And you will be a happy kombucha or a happy camper when you drink it. Okay, moving along. My blanket. I did make some progress on, oh my, I got needles sticking everywhere. Okay, and I am at the end of a row. So I am actually done with 2 repeats, so I'm more than halfway finished because the total number of repeats on this blanket is 4. So that's the first one, that's the second, and I think I'm about halfway, if not, yeah, it looks about halfway through the pom-pom section of the 3rd repeat. And as luck would have it, I had gotten the 3 skeins sent to me because I knew I would run out of yarn. And again, I had mentioned in the last podcast, I don't know if it's me and my gauge, because of course I did not do a gauge swatch. I'm not giving this to her with hair all over it. But I did do the knitted on border, which is 10 rows at the bottom and then 5 garter stitches on each side of the blanket. And I don't know if that was accounted for in the original pattern, because I cannot find it on Ravelry. All I have is this. It is a free pattern as far as I know on the Big Bad Wool website. I did look, and I believe this is a free pattern on their website, and it is called Oshare the Love. Excuse the coffee stains. We all know that story. But if you see, this had a crochet. The one in the picture has a crocheted edging on it. And the pattern does give you an option to do a knitted on edge, but I don't know that they accounted for the yarn. So I had mentioned that I had 3 skeins sent to me from the original from Do You Knit in Westfield, New Jersey, where I had purchased all of the yarn. And then I found a local yarn store here on the island that also carried the yarn, so I purchased 2 additional skeins, thinking that I probably wouldn't need them, but that it would be great if I had, enough left over. I didn't know how much I'd have left over from the 3. So I purchased 2 more, thinking if I had, enough left over, I could make a little jacket or a sweater, a hat, whatever. And then I just went while I was putting all this together, and in one of my bags found a skein that I had already wound up that I didn't account for. So I have enough now to make a sweater, a hat, and probably some little boots to go along with it. But it is a super, super simple pattern. It is just, I'm going to say, a little tricksy to hold this pom-pom yarn, which is on this spool. We're not going to make it in one piece. That's all I'm going to say. So a very, very kind viewer had told me how to get that beeping to stop the notifications. I guess it was an email notification or whatever, that constant dinging that was driving me insane. And I'm sure if you had earbuds in, it was driving you crazy or making you look to your phone to see if it was going off. And unfortunately, I couldn't figure out how to get my phone while I was doing all that. Couldn't figure out how to get my phone not to ring on the computer. So I'm like, all right, it's the afternoon. Who's going to call me? Well, I should have known better. I should have just shut off my phone. Maybe that will solve the problem if I just turn the phone off. I should find that out. If my phone is off, will it still ring on my computer? Okay, that's the next question. If anybody knows the answer to that, put a comment in the comment section below and let me know. Otherwise, I will have to do further research to see how to get my phone to stop. But at any rate, what I was saying was, it is a little bit tricksy to add in and knit with this. I think this is actually, there's no label or tag on it, but I think this is actually called Oshare. The spool of yarn. Let me see if it says on here. What it calls for. Yeah, this is called Oshare Pon Pon, and this is by Mondo Feel, Mondo capital Fil. That's who makes this, and I'll tell you why it's been giving me a little bit of grief. Because if you look, and looks wise, I'm not concerned. I'm more concerned with it getting pulled. Now I'm trying to find out for spite I won't be able to find it. If you can see in some areas, let's see if I can get a shot of it. Here's one. You can see where it doesn't quite pull as tight as the stitch, and it leaves like a little bump. And part of that is because the pom-pom would end up getting stuck under the knit stitch. So if you try to pull it tighter, you can, but when you finish the stitch and go on to the next one, this is going to work its way back out because it doesn't want to sit in between the stitches. It wants to sit on either this side or the other side. So in some cases, unless you're if you're really not paying attention, you can end up, I ended up with it having gotten tangled and then found like 6 inches laying on one side. So I had to tint that back. But you can see it just kind of tends to want to pop up from time to time. Now, I'm not really that concerned about it, and I'm hoping when I block it, it will even out somewhat. It seems to do it more on the wrong side. Now, somebody had asked me if I was trying to get these little pom-pom things to pop through to the right side. And the answer is no. I actually did try doing that in the beginning, but there's really no way. You would end up either having the blanket pulled to try to get the pom-pom to come through on the other side, or it would be too loose. You would have long strings, and I don't think it's meant for that. There are enough pom-poms, and if you look at it and you look at the picture, you'll see that they are supposed to be sprinkled randomly throughout. So if I turn it around to the wrong side, you can see that exactly the same thing is happening on the wrong side, that they're sprinkled throughout. So no, I don't, you just literally hold it as a second yarn and knit with it, but trying to keep the tension the same, since this is so much thin. I mean, we're talking literally a thread here, literally a thread in comparison. Oops, I know this is a mistake. In comparison to that. So sometimes trying to keep this tension the same, especially when you're working and you have that pom-pom to work in there, that's where the challenge has been with the blanket. Otherwise, absolutely easy, easy, easy. It's just, like I said, you do kind of have to pay attention to what's happening on the, I think, 20 rows or however many you're doing when you have these two held together, because this can get out of control. And I'm just seeing it happen now. What'll happen is a pom-pom will catch, like right there. This is actually knotted. And if you don't unknot this, it's going to start to pull up, and you're going to end up with a big thing on the other side. So you really have to be, I'm going to try to leave this loose or something so that I know to go back and fix it. That's where you really kind of have to be paying attention, because it's not the stitches. It's super, super easy peasy. The challenge is in holding the two together. If it were a straight mohair, if it were a flat yarn, if it was even a lace weight yarn, here comes the cat waiting to knock everything over. Why can I not get through one episode? Not one without a catastrophe. Honey, you want to move? Yes, I love you too, but now's not the time. Hold on one second. Indy, come on. There you go. Okay. So that's my two works in progress that I have from last week that did get, like I said, the birds of a feather got the most love. When I found out I was halfway through with the blanket and it really wasn't taking me all that long, I kind of cast on something else in the meantime. And I blame Ravelry for this, as I do for most of my cast on itis and whatnot. Oh, there we go. But this one really, this did it. If you look this week, and I think it actually is from last week, it's probably going to change today. On the front page of Ravelry, it was all about pink. Well, that was problem number one. I saw the pink and went crazy. But I saw this hat and absolutely flipped for it. And I had to make it. Just had to make it. So I ordered the yarn. This is called the Braided Cable Beanie. That's the name of the pattern. And the one that I'm doing is, I'm following the one that was knit by AllAboutAmi, AMI. It's her project that's on the front page. It's not her pattern, but it's her project that's on the front opening homepage of Ravelry. And I'm desperately trying. She has on there, on hers, a faux fur white pom-pom, which to me just made the hat. I mean, you can just see those gorgeous big cables on there. So I'm in search of a faux fur white pom-pom, because she did give the website that was selling it, but of course they're sold out, and they're sold out in all the colors, not just the white. But at any rate, the yarn, the pattern tells you you have two choices. You can use a light worsted and hold two strands together, or you can use a heavier wool, meaning like a 5 or a bulky yarn, and use a single strand. And that's what she did. And because I had to have that color, I ordered the yarn that she used, and it is called the Petite Wool by We Are Knitters. That's the name of the brand, is We Are Knitters. And it's the Petite Wool. And it is 100% Peruvian Highland wool. And I'm looking to see, she also has notes. If you go, and I will link her page below, because she has notes on how she did her beanie and where she did get the yarn she used and where she did get the pom-poms, so you can keep track if they get it back in stock. The colorway is nude. This is the color nude, and it is just a blush pink. Just my color, in case you couldn't really tell. It's a blush pink, and I loved it. So I ordered 2 skeins, and I might actually end up having to go back for a third. I believe she said she used 1 for the hat. And that sounds about right, because this had generous, if I'm not mistaken, this had generous yardage. This was 153 yards, which for a bulky yarn, 100 grams, is a generous amount. So this should absolutely make a hat, but I want to make matching mitts for it. And I don't know that 1 skein is going to be enough for, excuse me again, you need to get off the table before the accident happens. Yes, now I'm all up in, thank you. That's right, get in the bag, see if you can drop more coffee in there. Okay. Bye. Sometimes I feel like I'm running a zoo. Cat hair all over everything. Anyway, I cast on last night, and actually as soon as I finished recording, I am going to take a little trip to one of my local yarn stores because I am magic looping this. And before I start the cables, I want to put this onto a 16-inch needle. I think that's going to make it a lot easier for me. I cable without a cable needle. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. I've never done it with yarn this bulky. I don't usually knit with bulky yarn. I mean, even my worsted weight usage is limited, but that's about as bulky as I get. So this is actually kind of a learning curve for me. I've knit with bulky once or twice, but not very often. And my preferred method for hats is on a 16-inch needle, and I've never used, this calls for size 11 and size 13, and I simply just didn't have it. And my small Likey set, the largest needle in there is a 10.5, which I'm thinking that would have been perfect for everything I needed, all my hats and stuff. Okay, well, it wasn't. So I will be stopping by my local yarn store to get a size 11 and a size 13 needle in 16 inches to finish. I am actually have finished the ribbing rows. So you can see it's actually just a twisted rib. And then I'm up to the increase row, which you do on the next size needle. So I actually would really like to just get the 16-inch needle so I can proceed. This yarn is so soft. I can't even describe, and it has just the nicest halo to it. And like I said, it's Peruvian wool, but this is a singles. And I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a second for those of you that are spinners. As I mentioned, over the summer, I took a spinning class with Jillian Moreno, and Jillian is very, very well-versed in spinning singles. In fact, if I remember correctly, and I could be making this up, but if I remember correctly, I remember her saying that that is not only her favorite to spin, but her favorite to knit with is her singles that she spins. And that the trick to spinning singles, which I found almost to be counterintuitive, and is probably why when I've tried to spin singles, I ended up plying them, because you would think that when you spin a singles yarn, in order for it to hold it together, because it's not being plied with anything, you would want to add more twist. And in fact, exactly the opposite is true. When you spin for a singles yarn, you want to put in at least 30% less twist than you would put in to a yarn that is later going to be plied. And there are a lot of reasons for that, which again, I'm not going to go into right now. But the reason I'm mentioning that is because this is a singles yarn. And I'm going to say likely that this is probably a woolen spun singles yarn. And this has what I would think is a lot less than 30% twist. This has just enough yarn, just enough twist rather, to hold this together. And you can see what I mean, because this is almost like knitting with roving or comb top, because I can literally just pull this apart with my fingers. Now, what that's doing, and the yarn split once or twice, it did not break, it did not come apart. I was able to pick it back up again, I was able to fix it, but what that does is it adds an incredible amount of loft and an incredible amount of warmth to the garment. And the fact that you are twisting it and adding twist while you knit, and is particularly the cables, will hold this together. So this will wear well. Would I knit something hard wearing out of this yarn? Probably not. And again, I'm not even sure that I would knit mitts with this, because I'm thinking that they might not look very good after a certain amount of time. This will absolutely felt if this is mistreated. Okay, so this is not a hat that you're going to be able to throw in the washing machine. This is, you know, you can absolutely hand wash it. I mean, you don't have to baby these kind of yarns or even this kind of wool, because in order to felt something, and anyone that has tried to felt something and failed realizes that you need 3 things to felt anything, to felt wool. And if you do not have all 3, it is not going to felt. You need a change in temperature, you need soap, and you need agitation. So if you take your hat and you gently put it in warm, tepid water with soap, and you just literally push it down very, very gently. And there's discussion as to how gently you have to be, because to felt it, you really do need agitation. So you're kind of like just, you know, hand squeezing it to get, you know, clean it and do whatever. It's not likely going to felt it. The trick then is to make sure when you squeeze it out, if you go to rinse it, and again, most wool washes don't even require that, don't then put it in cool water, okay? So you want to make sure that if you go to rinse it, you put it in the same temperature water. All of this is to say that a lot of people are afraid of knitting with these kind of yarns, and you shouldn't be. They are absolutely just yummy. They are soft, they are fluffy. This is going to be a very warm, warm hat, not only from the loft and the air that's trapped in the actual yarn itself, but the yarn is soft and it's thick, it's bulky. So this will make a wonderful, wonderful hat. I absolutely am enjoying this. I love it. I love the yarn. I probably will rethink making mitts out of this, because like I said, these, you know, from your hands on the steering wheel, and if they get wet, if it snows and whatnot, there is a likelihood that those types of things will cause this to felt, and I don't know that I would want to do that. So I might instead make myself a cowl, get another skein in maybe a natural color, and make a cowl out of it and be very happy. So that's what I have cast on. Again, this is called, what is it called? I seem to have woken up Siri. It is the Braided Cable Beanie. As of right now, it is on the homepage of Ravelry. Again, it's designed by Prem Knits, P-R-E-M, Prem Knits, that's the designer, and I believe it's her website. She has an Etsy shop where she sells yarn to make this from, not this particular yarn, but other yarn that you can make this from. And there's also under AllAboutAmi, who's, I will link her project page underneath. She lists where you can get the faux fur pom-poms if you are interested. Again, the Etsy shop right now is sold out of them, and I don't know when they will become available, but I am off to see if I can't find one in person. Okay, that is it for Works in Progress. Spinning. I did spin this week. That's my other thing, is I have been on my wheel. I didn't take it off. I am almost done with the singles part of, why is it so dark in here? I know it's supposed to rain. I have my lights on. God, I just can't get this down. It's been over a year. Oh, okay. Creaky chair. I think I actually, if it's possible, I think I'm getting worse at this than better. I really do. I think I'm getting actually worse. Partly, you know, and I know part of my downfall, I do not make show notes. I make them afterwards and link everything below, but I don't make notes before I sit down. I'm more of a fly by the seat of your pants type of gal, and I'm afraid it shows. It shows terribly. I don't lock the animals up. I don't write down what I'm going to talk about or what I'm going to, you know, cover, which is why I tend to go off on these ridiculous tangents half the time. Here's the threads that I pulled. I'm sure the cat will have a blast with that. I clearly remember when I started, I had a red notebook. I had a red spiral notebook. And before I sat down, I wrote down, and I think I did that for 3 episodes, gave it up. I think that's when things started to go down the hill. Okay. Anyway, finished object. So I was spinning. So at any rate, like I said, I'm almost finished with the singles on my Into the World that I'm working on. I would very much like to get back into spinning and starting to ply or even blend some of the fleece that I have that's already been washed, and I still have a little bit of the, well, all right, a little bit. I lied. I have a huge sack of this cornmeal that I have to wash, and that's the one I've been washing lock by lock. But it's incredible how fast you can do enough wax to keep you spinning for quite a while. So that may not be seeing the end of its life for a long time, but that's okay. So I have nothing to show you, but I have been spinning. Hopefully I will have that to show soon, and hopefully this cat will not. Oh, come on. It's bad enough when I'm sitting here doing this, but when we're eating, it's even worse. Now go out. Come on, go play someplace. Okay, so we're going to jump into finished objects. And this section is going to contain finished objects that I have finished and blocked and woven in the ends. And it is also going to have some projects that were sitting in a bag or thrown on a mannequin, either not blocked, without the ends woven in, without buttons sewn on. I was mortified. I have something to show you there. I'm absolutely mortified that it sat there for 2 years unwearable simply because I did not sew on the buttons and sew on the ends. I actually had blocked it. So let's get started. My first finished object, and I'm so thrilled with it, is my Find Your Fade. I did block it. I wove in every one of these little ends, and there were a lot because you changed all of those colors, but it is done. I'm going to stand up so you can get an idea. I think this is a chair noise. Ooh, that was an exceptionally bad chair noise. Okay. I think this is wrapped around twice. This is the shorter end. This is the beginning. So this is actually the shorter end, and I have that sort of just thrown on. I did not style this in any crazy way. I just sort of put it around twice and then stuck this tail underneath and sort of bloused it out into a cowl. And I was actually really afraid that I was not going to be able to pull this off because I don't know if you can tell from this, the fact that I'm standing and the camera is like, what, 2 feet in front of me and almost all of me is in there should be a good indication I don't make 5 feet. I'll be honest, I don't make 4'11", okay? I'm real short and I'm very short-waisted, okay? Whatever little length I do have, and it isn't much, is in my legs. Once you come to the hip bone, there's no torso here. That's it. My hip is here and my shoulder's here. There's no room. So I was terribly afraid that I was going to make this and it was going to be just like I looked like I was wearing a blanket is really what I thought was going to happen. And at that point I was like, oh my, what am I going to do? Because I did see somebody wearing the salt cardigan, which I did purchase the yarn for, and I'm seriously rethinking it because they were a good 6 to 7 inches taller than me and it was almost hitting the ground. And I'm like, I cannot pull that off. I mean, it'll look like I'm trailing behind me. But I digress. I'm extremely happy with this. I think this is going to be just a great go-to everyday warm cowl, shawl, scarf, whatever you want to do with it for the winter. Could you just see? That's got to be a new one. Choked by by knitwear. I'm wondering if there's a diagnostics code for that, you know, patient choked by knitwear. I can wear it as a shawl. Now, if you had taken, I took Knit Stars 2.0, and Andrea Mowry did one of the classes with it. And one of the segments that she did was ways to wear your knitwear. And one of the things that she showed was ways that she wears her Find Your Fade. And she said when she first finished it, it was summer, and she had just had her baby. So she was wearing a papoose in the front and just had this thrown over her shoulders. And you can. But I have to tell you, I'm standing here with this, and I'm looking down, and there's about 2 feet of this sucker dragging on the floor. So I probably couldn't get away with that. What I would do, and what I think would be a really, really great way to wear this is, and I don't know, again, you know, you probably wouldn't do it with a coat on, but I think if you were to knot it in the back, if you wanted to wear it as a shawl over your shoulders, I just tuck these 2 ends in, and it's almost like a shrug, and it's so totally comfortable. It's warm, it's over your shoulders. This is a great way, I think, if you're home and you want to throw something on, since it's not really tight. I'm not a fan of that knot look. Now here, it's only a small knot, so there's only 2 little ends here, so I guess you could knot it this way, and actually, I kind of like that. I mean, I've seen people take shawls and knot them in the back, and there's this huge knot back there, and kind of that's the last place I need attention called to. I don't know about anybody else. But this, if you pull this over, there's just a tiny little knot, and I think this is another really fabulous way to wear it. You know, you can flatten this out in the back, do whatever you want, but that's a great way to wear it. She also showed, and I'm going to give away some of the secret sauce from, from the 2.0 class, is she wrapped it around, and I'm going to try not to choke myself, but she had this wrapped like this, and this she had tucked underneath like this. And she actually wore 2 of her shawls this way. And I think this she had under or over, I'm not even sure, but we'll just do it over for brevity's sake. The point being, what she did with the long tail was she just tied this in a knot and let it hang. And what that did was it gives a little bit of weight to keep this in place, to keep this from like flipping or whatever. And it just sort of made it short enough that it wasn't hanging. And even on me, you can see it just comes down to here. On a normal person, it probably would come, you know, to a reasonable spot. So that's another thing you can do, is take the long end of it, and when you're finished wrapping yourself up in this, you can tie it in a knot and just have that knotted end hanging. Oh, what a relief. Okay. Oh, now it's cold. I was nice and warm, snuggled up in that thing. Oh. Okay, moving along. If you've been with me for a while, last year, 2016, was not one of my better years. And I actually had started podcasting and had to stop for a couple of months. And in that couple of months, I very, very rarely reknit a pattern. I'll do it if, somebody really wants it, and, if my mother asks, or one of her friends wants it, or if somebody really, really wants, I'll knit it as a gift for them. Other than that, I very, very, very rarely will go back and knit something again unless I have a reason to, or it's something that I want in another color. But I had done a star shower, and it actually didn't start out too easy, but after a while it became addictive, and then it became almost therapeutic. And I started knitting as soon as one was done. I already had the yarn to cast on another and another and another, and I think I knit all told 5 star showers. I blocked one and I wore it. One I blocked and gave as a gift, and I have 3 star showers sitting. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So in my blocking party, I took one of the star showers that I had, and the one thing I did not do with this is weave in my one little end. And there's a bunch of stuff that I still have that I will show next week, because this would have been, forget it, I would have had too many things to show. But this is one of my star showers. And this is done in Anzula Nebula, so it's their yarn with, I don't know if I can get it, yeah, again, like one stupid end I have to weave in. But their Nebula is their sparkle base, and I love this pattern. I just love this pattern. I'm going to fall. I'm going to fall. I'm going to knock everything over, and I'm going to fall. I loved the first one. I've knit all of them in the Anzula Nebula in different colors. I knit it in the gray. I knit it in this. I knit it in a green. I knit it in a blue. I knitted it, I don't even know. But what I will say, I love the pattern. I love the way it fits. You can wear it. And what she calls it is a hybrid of a cowl and a shawl. I love wearing it like this, pulled down over my shoulders, which is why I just love this pattern. You can wear it totally as a cowl, which I think is also just as beautiful. It's very light. This is something that, especially in the spring or summer, that if you took with you when you're going in an air conditioning, if you knit this in one of the lighter colors, like this color, which is kind of almost like a nude blush color, you could take it in, you could wear it over your shoulders, whatever. It's very light, take it off. So it's not just that I was addicted to knitting these things, and it was a distraction. That's why I had memorized the pattern, and it was enough to keep my mind occupied and just keep going and going and going. And I kind of happen to like the finished object. So I happen to have a lot of star showers now. So that was another item. I did block this one, and that was where I was going with this. I have to say, I don't go by the schematic or the dimensions when I block this. And I've heard a lot of people say that they were unable to get it to where it goes over their shoulders. All I'm going to say with this, and I will say the schematic has you blocking it sort of this way, okay? With the opening here, with the opening here, and then coming down, and then the bind off edge down the bottom, and then this straight edge. I'm not going to do that again, only because I find that leaves this. And I've seen it on Ravelry and a lot of people's different projects. So I think in the future, I'm going to block this flat and then go this way. And what I will say with this, I disregarded the dimensions, and what I did was I literally just yanked the bejesus out of it. I mean, that's all I can say. I just pulled it as hard as I could without causing points, if that makes sense, so that the edges stayed straight and that the lace really, really opened up and I didn't get points anywhere. And I found that each one that I blocked like that fits exactly the way that I wanted it to fit. So that's the star shower. That got blocked. I have to weave one end in. That's done. This is an embarrassment. This, I think, sat for 3 years. I blocked it about 3 years ago. I never wove the ends in. So I never wore it, never had it on. It just sat. The pattern is Mix 33 by Shibui Knits. This is knit out of Pebble, the Pebble yarn. And I have been completely unable to wear this wrap because, again, it had a lot of ends to weave in, and I chose not to weave the ends in. So it's sad. So here it is now, totally wearable. And again, it is a really nice and cozy little wrap. This is an oblong, just a long rectangular piece, so you can wear it sort of like a scarf, which is probably how I would wear it, just like a scarf like this. And just have the ends like that. And I like it because the solid blocking, which is where this is actually knit in 2 pieces and then grafted. So you have sort of the one color on one side, then the other color, major color on the other side, and then the blocking in the center. So I like wearing it this way. But you could also certainly wear it as a full-blown wrap, which is also really, really nice. And again, this is something that you can take if you want to just throw something on. I did this in the neutrals. I wish I knew the colorways. It's probably listed on my Ravelry page, and the finished object picture is probably the one of it blocking, and then nothing after that. And I'm like, feel like a headless horseman here. It's a talking scarf. But at any rate, I feel like I have all these new items to wear when actually some of them are as much as 3 years old, which is like totally pathetic. The only new thing is my Find Your Fade, and that was because I was determined to wear that. Now this, I'll do this one last. This I finished, I think I finished this last year. I know I was already podcasting. This is Creatrix. Come on. Ow. Okay, that was a really good look for me. Cat jumped, got me in the leg. Probably have a hole in my pants. I told you I'm getting worse at this rather than better. I love this shawl. I blocked it. It is beautiful. I loved the pattern. I loved knitting it. I never wove in the ends. And my mother had been begging me to wear it, and I kept saying, all right, I'll weave in the ends. Never wove in the ends. They're woven in now. And this is totally wearable now. Now that it's, getting warm, getting cold, I have a beautiful spring, summer shawl to wear. But the truth of the matter is, I had to, they're all getting done. They're all getting done. And I'm in love with the shawl. I just absolutely love this shawl. I think this is just one of Laura's most intriguing patterns that I had done. I love how it came out. I think you could wear this with jeans. I think you could wear this over a black fancy dress. I just absolutely am in love with the shawl. If I remember correctly, there were a couple of ways to block it and finish it. I chose to do a beaded picot bind off, and blocked out each of the picots, which is why, it kind of was really to the point where I was upset with myself for like putting in all of this work and then just throwing these things, in a bag or on a mannequin and leaving them and never wearing them, or not even having anybody else able to wear them because there's ends hanging everywhere. And that brings me to my biggest embarrassment, and probably one of my favorite items, which has sat now for at least 2 years. And that is my catkin, which I believe I finished before I started recording. I can't remember. I blocked it, and I never wove in any of the ends. And typical me fashion, here's what happened with the buttons. I ordered the buttons online. I get the buttons. The buttons are 3 sizes too big. There is no way the buttons are going into these buttonholes. Okay, not a problem. I go to, it was either Rhinebeck or Maryland Sheep and Wool, and I go up to the Melissa Jean booth and I buy buttons. And I looked at the buttons, I knew they would fit, I knew it would be fine. I get the buttons home. Do I go to sew them on? No. And I keep thinking about it, and bottom line is, when I finally go, I really should finish that, I'm going to sew the buttons on, I can't find the buttons. They're gone. Next event, Melissa Jean, get the same buttons, bring the buttons home. What do I find? The old buttons. The upshot is, this sat for almost 3 years. 2 years. I don't think it was 3 years. 2 years. And now it's done. It is finished. Squeaky chair noise. I had actually started this pattern once before. And I ought to be perfectly honest, I had gotten through the striping. You start up here, and I had gotten through the garter, and then once I got to this part here, I had trouble, and I had to stop. I had to give up. So I did this one as a Camp Loopy challenge, and I called it finished because it essentially the knitting was done. It just needed the buttons, and it needed to be, it was blocked, needed the ends woven in. Well, now all that is done, and I am happy to say that I can now wear this to death. I am so thrilled with how it came out. Would I knit it again? I don't know. It's not that the buttons took quite a while to sew on, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why. I am not a fan of the yarn over knit two together buttonhole. I don't like it. I let it go on this one because I can't see really any need to unbutton it at this point. It slips very easily over your head. If I want to wear the buttons to the side, I would just flip it over. There's really no need to unbutton it. But I have since found many different tutorials, and I think one was from Elizabeth Zimmerman. I think Ann Budd had a few on how to make a better buttonhole. So if I did this again, and again, I don't know that I would. I think what I found, if I remember from the notes that I wrote on this, it's a beautiful pattern. And it is a beautiful, beautiful garment. I have seen it on people, which is what made me want to knit it. You have to focus, but once you get into the rhythm of it, it actually is much more relaxing, and it's not as stressful. So I don't know. I don't know if I would knit this again. I have a lot of lace projects that I have on the horizon, so I think this would be further down the line, but I'm so happy to have it. I'm so happy to have so many of these things now finished and wearable, and it has just spurred me on. You'll see next time I record, my peachy shawl is finished. That was blocked. There's a couple of other things. So the only thing I can say, the takeaway message from this is, when you knit something, block it. Block it, weave in the ends. Don't let it sit unused for however long. It's tragic. All right, so I'm off my soapbox now and moving right along. I'm going to head into stash enhancement. And I don't have too much. As I had mentioned last week on Wednesday night, Christy Glass came to, it used to be the Long Island Livestock Company. Now I think it's Long Island Woolen Farm. Let me see if that's she changed it. No, it still says Long Island Livestock Company, but I think it's now called Long Island Wool and Yarn. The owner is Tabitha, and she is just a lovely, lovely person. I have purchased from her we have a local festival here in Halleckville. So I had met her several years ago, and I've purchased some of her fiber from her alpaca, and been very, very happy with it. I've actually purchased, she sells shepherdess salve, she sells lip balm, but this was really just a knit night. To really just kind of sit down, and people from the area sit down and get a chance to meet and get to know Christy Glass, who is funny, just so nice. She was just so interested in everything everybody was doing, and it was just wonderful. We had such a great time. And Tabitha had on the table, and I really admire her for that, because a lot of times when you go to the local yarn store, you almost kind of feel pressured at midnight to buy yarn and whatnot. And with Tabitha, it was kind of like the opposite. I mean, her yarns were in the basement, and, we were asking her about it, and she's like, well, I don't really, I'll take people down. But we kind of like had to yes, we want to go see. So it's kind of like we almost had to pull teeth to go down. And the reason that I did, one of the things she was showing on the table was a book, which I did purchase because I just thought this was different. This was a novel book, and I will, when I've gone through it more, I will do a review on this. The book is called Seed Stitch, and it's by Rosemary Drysdale. And these samples on the cover of the book were all made with Tabitha's yarn, with the yarn from, like I said, I think it's called now Long Island Yarn and Farm or Woolen Farm, something like that. I'll link it below. And I saw this cowl and went, and I'm like, seed stitch? A book on seed stitch? We were sitting there going, everybody hates seed stitch. It's just knit, purl, knit, purl. Well, we were stunned when we opened up the book, and just some of the samples were able to see what you could do with just seed stitch. And one of the things that I loved about the book was that there are a few patterns in here. There are patterns for this cowl. There are patterns for this cowl. But most of what this is it's just a pattern book of patterns that you do in seed stitch. And there were so many. There were just so many combinations of seed and moss, combination of seed and cables, seed and twisted stitches. There were just so many beautiful tweedy seed stitch, so many things that you could do, and I've never seen a book like that before. Here is a honeycomb pattern that's done in seed stitch. So to me, that was a worthy addition. And again, I don't usually buy knitting books much anymore. If I do, I buy the ebooks so that the pattern, I can access it electronically. But this was so novel and so different that I felt like I really would enjoy this book. So based on that, I went downstairs and I found 2 skeins of yarn. And this is, let's see, the American Raised and Spun. This one is called Autumn Sky, and I'm trying to get if there's a name. Let's see. All of our yarns are naturally colored and uniquely designed, therefore we recommend buying enough twine from the projects. Okay, this is a worsted weight. Okay, it's 100 yards of Autumn Sky, 3 ounces, and it's 60% alpaca, 10% sari silk, 30% merino wool. And this one is Pink Clove. All of the yarns are raised and spun in the USA. This is 100 yards. That comes to 2.8 ounces. This is 70% 70% alpaca, 25% merino, and 5% Firestar. This is what like sucked me in like a vacuum cleaner. I don't know if I can get it to show. I think you can see it there. There was just this subtle amount of sparkle on this yarn, and I wish you could feel it because they are so soft. So I am looking at making that checkerboard cowl in seed stitch with these two yarns that I purchased while out in Yaphank last week. So that was one acquisition. All right, maybe it was two or three. And at the same time, this is yarn actually I had purchased before. This I had gotten, a friend of mine went to Do You Knit, which again I had mentioned, I keep mentioning that store because I love their yarn, in Westfield, New Jersey, and she had picked it up for me. So I got it, she gave it to me on Wednesday. So I'm not counting this as recent stash because it was from a while ago. But this is, oh God, all that fiber is getting to me now. This is House of AllAboutAmi. I'm trying to see if I can get without glare on it. Let's see. Hold it up. Is that going to make it better? There we go. Okay. Okay, so it's a speckled yarn. This is a singles yarn. It is House of AllAboutAmi, and this is in the exclusive, please, if you know how to turn the phone off, please tell me below. I can't tell you, I got the dinging to stop. I did because I'm seeing the notifications popping up and I don't hear the dinging. So I dealt with that issue, but I can't get the phone to stop, and my phone is not even here. It is upstairs somewhere. So somewhere or another, I got to figure that out. However, moving along, this is in the, it's a colorway that's exclusive to Do You Knit, and it is called Ode to Karen, because Karen, the owner, absolutely loves pink. I'd say who doesn't, but I do know there are people who absolutely don't like pink. But it is 400 yards. It is superwash merino house fingering single ply, and I managed to get not one but two skeins of this yummy color. So I will likely put this into some sort of faded garment. Not sure what yet, but just as a note to those who may be interested. Hedgehog Fibers, which is a dyer in, her name is Beata. She's located in Cork, Ireland. She is the dyer that dyed the original, and I was lucky enough, she did one runoff of the original Find Your Fade colors. And I did purchase the kit from her. I probably didn't even realize that I may have had some of the colors because I was in her club. And the reason I say that is because she does 3-month clubs. I think they're 3 months at a time. And those are exclusive colorways, and once they're done, they're done. And several of the colorways in the original, in Andrea Mowry's original Find Your Fade, were from her clubs, so people couldn't get it. So to that end, Beata did a runoff of the original kit with the colors that Andrea Mowry used in the Find Your Fade. However, if you are interested in, sorry, I wanted to make sure I gave you accurate information. If you are interested, sign-ups are coming, let me see. Wrote Hedgehog Club update, but I did not write the time. That was not smart. I will link it below, but she will be opening up the club for the next 3 months this Saturday, the 18th. Now, I want to say it's 11 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, because I think I figured out that it was 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will link it below. I will link the website, and I will put in the times, the local times, well, my local time. So if it's easier for you to calculate, I'm on the Eastern Seaboard, so it's Eastern Standard Time now. I'll put that time in there and the Greenwich Mean Time for the update. but it is this Saturday, the 18th of November. So if you are interested in getting, you get 2 skeins for each for 3 months. So you get a total of 6 skeins. And I have to say the price is extremely reasonable, even with the shipping. It ends up coming out to pretty much what you would pay for a skein in the store. And these, again, are exclusive colorways to the club. So it's a pretty good deal, and they ship super fast. I don't know how they get it here from Ireland so fast. I've ordered things from Newark that don't come so fast. So, I mean, it's amazing to me how fast they ship. So if you're interested at all in getting any Hedgehog fiber, if your local yarn store does not carry it, if you're unable to get it, if you'd like to see some of the exclusive colorways, and if you'd like to collect 6 skeins, then 6 skeins will make, I believe, 6 skeins will make certain sizes in the comfort cardigan. It certainly will make a freer fade. So think about that. Again, I will link it below. I had it in my handy dandy planner, which I am obsessed with this. I've just been decorating it like crazy. So while this episode is just getting longer and longer, I will go on to my last enabling, which was I got my Lola's Choice Club for this month. And that's, again, one of the clubs from Lola Nelkin. Well, it is. Lola is her alter ego, but it's a club from Laura Nelkin. This is one of her, this is a small club compared to the N Club, which the Creatrix was one of the knit-alongs from the larger club, from the M Club, which has now become the N Club for 2018. And instead of 4 projects, there'll be 3. But she also has a club which is smaller in size and smaller in items. And this month, it was for the Athwart mitts, okay? And included in that, Laura had spent some time in the Shetland Islands, and I think has become very much in love with Shetland wool and Shetland lace and Shetland knitting. And I have to say, it's kind of an obsession of mine. So this month she sent us 2 skeins for the mitts of Jameson and Smith Shetland Heritage, which is now pretty much the closest you can come to what you would find Shetland items knit out of. So these 2 skeins came in the kit. She also sent us Yorkshire Gold tea, and she sent us this little recycled bag. A tiny little project bag, a little whatever bag. I'm all into recycling bags. So I thought that was a very cute kit. I think the mitts would be nice and warm. And that, as she wrote, is all I have. Okay, that's it. What were we? 3 interruptions, 2 phone calls. I think that's not so bad. We had the cat. And my tea is still in the cup. So that's it for this week. Next Thursday, a week from today, is Thanksgiving here in the United States. I will likely not get the chance to record again before. So I will wish everyone a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy time with your friends, with your family. Enjoy your turkey, your food. If you have any recipes that you enjoy, that are your favorite standby Thanksgiving recipes, we would love to if you share them with us. You can join us on the Ravelry group that we have, KnitScents Podcast. It is on Ravelry. I can open a thread. I'll do it. Maybe somebody will go in there. I actually will likely put in my recipe, which I found last year. And it's actually not a recipe that I use on Thanksgiving. It is something that I have finally found to do with the leftover turkey that I actually could not make enough. I've used up every scrap of leftover turkey I had last year, and it is a recipe for turkey pot pies that were so amazing and so unbelievably good that every one of my, one pie was gone, like almost before I put it on the table. And they were like, we want another one. So the recipe made two. So, okay, here's another one. And the next day I'm like, when are we having more of those pies? So I took all the leftover turkey and put it into these pot pies. The pot pies were gone, whereas the turkey would have ended up in the garbage pail. So I will share that recipe with you for what you can do with your leftover turkey on the day after Thanksgiving or the weekend after Thanksgiving. And I would love it if you would share with us some of your favorite Thanksgiving recipes. So if you would put that on the board, I think we would all very much enjoy that. So I wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. Watch out on Black Friday if you plan to do any shopping. I wish you good luck. I will be home. I will be knitting and making pot pies. So until I see you again, I wish you all a very good week, and remember to knit with sense.